But it's nice to know that there's a lot of people who enjoy watch what I do, you know? Even if it's, even if I'm talking about nothing, you know? It's very nice knowing that you guys enjoy that. Because, you know, I was never really listened to when I was younger, you know? It always felt like I was screaming and talking, and it's like nobody could hear me. It's like I was in a soundproof, you know, room and nobody listened. And that's what it felt like, a lot of the times. And, you know, and it was really tiring to be like that. Ever since I was younger, it was like that, you know. Um, and being that happening when you're young really, changes you. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I felt like my issues weren't important enough, you know. Like they weren't important enough for anybody to listen to, and you know it made me a lot more quiet in my life. I didn't want to talk about anything. I felt like I was I wasn't supposed to talk about anything, you know. And I I remember talking about a lot of my issues, and nobody cared. I was nothing to anybody, and it sucks. I wish I was something. Even today, get the chance to talk to somebody or vent, and I can't bring myself to do that. It doesn't have to be talking about my issues. It's even something that I'm just interested in. I'll talk and talk, and then I realize nobody really cares. You know, and that sucks. It hurts my feelings. It really did. When I was younger, I didn't want to do anything in my life. I wanted to be I wanted to be heard. And I knew I wouldn't be. So over time I learned that it's best to bottle those things up. There's no reason to talk because nobody cares about your story. Nobody wants to hear about you whine about everything in life. That's kind of how I grew up. You stay quiet, you know your role. You stay quiet and don't talk to anybody. And that sucked, man. Cause I didn't want to. I don't want to live a life like that. I want to live a life where I feel cared for. Where I can be like, yeah, I can talk about this. I can be this or that, and I can't do that. There's no way I can do that. You know what I mean? And it hurts me because I know it wasn't always like that. At least when I was, even for a short time, you know. I at least knew that somebody cared for me a little bit. And that ended pretty quickly. pretty fucking quickly. And I really don't know what changed in that scenario where nobody cared, but I remember how it was, and I remember how I was treated. That really changed me. And because, you know, you grow up when you're younger, you think, you know, life's, you know, all sunny and colorful. And you learn it's not. You learn that people don't actually care for you. They don't care about you or what you want. All they care about is what you can provide to them, you know? I remember people that I thought I could trust. I would talk to them because, you know, I'd finally open up, and, you know, what would end up happening is I would become nothing, you know? I would just be a ghost to them, and they'd leave me. They'd slowly leave me, and you can tell when they got annoyed by you. I didn't understand it, though. I didn't think I was a bad person, but I wanted a friend and someone I could talk to and trust for a lot of my issues, and I never found that person. I always ended up being alone for a lot of my life. And whether being alone was my decision or not, I always felt better off that way. Because at least I knew that I would be safer that way, you know? Because I didn't have to worry about what somebody thought of me. Sometimes I wish there was somebody that cared. I know there isn't, but it'd be nice, you know, to have somebody in my life that did. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't mind it. I'd prefer it. Because the truth is I don't want to be alone, truly. I want to be loved, you know? And it sucks when you don't really know what love feels like. I want love bad, but no matter what, the moment I feel it, I sabotage and I leave. I don't want to be around that. And I don't know why I do that, but it's like a part of me is trying to keep me safe because it knows it's not safe. I don't want it to be that way. And I can't help it. I don't want it to end up that way every time, but I know it will. I know that at some point I'll end up just being alone. And I know that I'll end up being alone. That's normally how it goes for me. And I can pretend that it's not like that, but I mean, let's be honest, it is. It always will be. I get scared of love. I get scared of commitment because, you know, I'm taking a chance with somebody. I don't know if that's a good chance or not, but that's the point. I don't want to be. I'm scared to take that chance because I don't know if it's gonna be a good or a bad one. And I think that scares me the most. You know? It's a weird feeling. Because, I mean, it's pretty simple. You could just be like, oh, well, you know, don't be scared, right? But it's hard to not be scared. It's hard to tell people that how am I supposed to tell somebody that, you know, I yearn for things like that, but I end up just destroying everything I wanted, you know? It doesn't make sense to people. It doesn't make sense to anybody to do that. If you do that, you're abusive. You're not seen as anybody to them. And I don't want to be seen that way, but I know that, you know, at some point I've turned into that person, you know. I don't want to be that person, you know. I just want to I want to have a moment where I'm not scared to love somebody, where I'm not scared to put myself out there for someone. I don't know if that that time will ever come for me, you know. And I feel sometimes like I deserve that. I feel like love is something you have to earn, and a part of me knows I haven't earned that. If that makes sense. It feels like maybe I'm bound to be this way, you know? bound to be alone, and maybe I deserve that. Maybe I'm not a good enough person or worthy enough to love. That's just how I feel about it, and it scares me. Because I think a part of me has always wanted to, you know, I always wanted to be loved or something, but I know that's not going to happen. I know that I'm most likely going to be always a self-isolated person, and that's kind of what I've accepted in life. I wish it's not what I accepted, but